Hello there, friends and sane persons. My name is Kyle, and it's another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Welcome to join me. My angle's a little wider on the camera today. I had a little issue, so I had to swap it out for another one. But that's okay. You can see more of my game collection, which is totally not a hoard. Anyway, if it's your first time joining me, or even if it's not, Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game topic, a top 10, some sort of board game related item, usually, occasionally not, but most of the time, yes. And we just sort of talk about it. No real structure here. This week we're talking about a top 10 review. Now, I'll give you sort of a little bit of background. I recently played a game called Jerusalem Anno Domini, and I was thinking, this is an IP-based game. Right? It's a game based upon the accounts of the Last Supper in the Bible. Spoiler, I'm not going to put that one on my list, not because it's bad. It's actually pretty good. We might talk about it another time. But because it's not really, I don't know if just sort of a casual biblical theme can quite classify as an IP. But what I am going to talk about is several games that I enjoy that are themed based upon some sort of existing intellectual property, whether that be a book, a movie, a TV show, another board game universe, whatever it may be. These are games that I think really do their sort of intellectual property, their background, their thematic background justice. And I figure let's talk about them. Without much further ado here, let's jump in to number 10. My number 10 is a game that probably no one who watches this, except maybe one person, has heard of, and that is a game called The Dresden Files Cooperative Card Game, which, if you're going to talk, I guess it tells you what your game does, but it's not really the best name for a game. Anyway, this is, however, a situation where I went into the game not knowing much about the IP background, and I ended up learning to like the IP based upon the game that it's based on. So the Dresden Files is a series about a private investigator/wizard named Harry Dresden who lives and works and sort of solves magical crimes and does a variety of things. And this game, if you buy it with its expansions, it takes you through nearly every one of the books. I think there's a couple of books that have come out since then that might not quite be in there, but it will take you through the stories, and you've got these cases you're investigating. You're trying to generate power and playing cards and doing actions that are thematically connected with the books. I actually think it does a great job at bringing these books to life, especially because I knew nothing about the books. Okay, well, look, those dice aren't doing it much justice, but I knew nothing about the books, and then all of a sudden I found out about them when I saw this game and thought, oh, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll give it a try. So anyway, my number 10, it's a great way to learn about an IP, to sort of see artwork based upon a book series and kind of ease your way in and then fall in love with the book series as well. So there you have it. My number 10, The Dresden Files Cooperative Card Game. Terrible name. As opposed to any other Dresden Files, I don't know. Well, let's go on now to my number 9. My number 9 is also based upon a book series. This is a book series that I knew before the game came out, but once the game came out, I was really excited. The book is by one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson, and it is called The Reckoners. So there's no book, The Reckoners, but there's a series, The Reckoners. The first book is called Steelheart. And with the game, you are going to play through at least, the first base game, you're going to play through essentially the story of Steelheart. Steelheart is about a corrupt supervillain who, I guess as opposed to a good one, a supervillain who has all kinds of powers, and everyone in the world is superpowered who's evil, and there's a couple of normal people who are trying to stop him. And in this game, you take on the role of a team of these characters trying to stop the villain Steelheart. All your favorite characters from the book are there. You're also taking on a variety of other superpowered individuals, and you're trying to do enough damage, or well, you're first trying to discover the weakness of these characters and then do damage to them to kill them. Sometimes you can kill them outright, but sometimes, like this one firefight here, you have to do research and discover the weakness first before you are able to do any damage to the person. So you're trying to do this and defeat the big bad villain Steelheart before the end game triggers happen and you lose. Now there's also an expansion, the Steel Slayer expansion, which is going to take you through the other 2 books in the core series, and you'll be able to fight against the villains from those books, Regalia and Limelight. And, they sort of open things up, do things a little bit differently, but sort of use the same core game mechanisms. It's a great way to fall in love with the theme. It's a great way, if you already like the books, to have a great experience based upon something you enjoy, and it really brings that theme to life. It's a great cooperative game as well. My number 9, The Reckoners. Now we'll go on to number 8. My number 8 is also a book. Not all of these are going to be books, but books tend to make good board games, I guess, because there's a lot of story. This is a book, and actually, so this is a book that I remember from my childhood, my father really liking, and I actually started reading the book after I learned that this game existed. So they kind of both came into my life at the same time. So I learned about the game, I bought the book, I read the book, and I played the game kind of all simultaneously. And that game is called Pillars of the Earth. So this is a book by Ken Follett about sex and about building a cathedral in Middle Ages England. So that's kind of what you're doing. You're going to take on the role of all of these various builders. You're not anyone from the book, but you've got this board. It's very well illustrated, a beautiful board. And you're going to be doing a variety of things, but ultimately the core mechanism is you have these master builder pieces, and they're going to be drawn out of a bag. And when you draw yours out, you're going to put it on this track down here, this little wheel. And that's the order in which they're going to come out. But you can also pass, and if you pass, you go to the end. And then when it comes time to activate the actions, you're going to pay more if you went first. So there might be an advantage to going last. It'll be free, but you're also going to have last pick. And so there's this interesting decision. You're also placing your workers out at a variety of locations, and that's going to dictate the different actions you can do. But basically, that's it. It's a very Euro-style game, not a whole lot of theme, but the theme that's there works really well, and it does the book justice. It has, of course, artwork of the characters, but you really do kind of feel like you're in this world of Kingsbridge, and you're building up the cathedral in Pillars of the Earth. So that is my number 8. Moving on now, and I think I might have... Yeah, so this one's maybe a stretch of the IP, but I think technically it's correct. So let's go on to number... So as I indicated, my number 7, technically it's an IP. This is the game is called Cthulhu: Death May Die, obviously based upon the Cthulhu mythos originating with H.P. Lovecraft, but also developed by others. So it's public domain, but still, it's you can trace it back to a source. This game, Cthulhu: Death May Die, is probably the best Cthulhu game. I thought about Cthulhu Wars as well, but this one really does kind of the books and the short stories justice. You are a series of investigators or fighters or whatever you want to call them, and you are going up against various baddies from the Cthulhu universe. There's, of course, this famous set piece, this large Cthulhu. I have one upstairs. It's been painted by my friend, and you can use it in one of the scenarios. But most of the game is a little bit smaller in scope than that. But what you're doing is you're going around and you have a story you're playing through. Basically, the theory of this game is it's supposed to be a plug-and-play scenario game where you can choose a chapter and you can choose a big bad, and you shuffle those up, throw in a couple of investigators, and you're going to play through a particular story. Ultimately, you're trying to disrupt a ritual, which basically means accomplish a goal. And once you do, the big bad, in this case Cthulhu, or it could be one of a few others. There's not very many, unfortunately. There need to be more. But the big bad will show up, and then you can wail on him. The core game, though, is great because it's so very, very simple. On your turn, you just have a few actions. You do them, you're done. The actions are simple. They're move, they're attack, they're sort of a resting action, and there's maybe a couple of others. But as you attack, though, you're going to roll these dice, and dice are good because they have hits on them. But also, you're going to roll these tentacle symbols, and the tentacles are going to increase your madness. When you go mad all the way, you lose. But also, as you become mad, you're going to hit these thresholds. They're going to trigger a special ability, which can be good or bad, depending on the situation. And they're also going to unlock a special power. So you're going to get stronger as you go on. You'll get to roll more dice. You'll get access to stronger abilities. So as the game starts, you're kind of weak, but you're going to ramp up pretty quickly throughout the course of the game, and that's really very satisfying. Ultimately, you're able to go toe-to-toe with Cthulhu, and I find that one of the great things about this game is I almost never win or lose quickly, right? It's always, you're going to go down. It's rarely a washout one way or the other. You're either going to lose by a turn or win by a turn, and I find that tension to be delightful. I also think the game is just what it does well is it's so simple, and the rules kind of stay out of the way so you can have a good time. I really enjoy Cthulhu, A Death May Die. Let's go on now to my number 6. My number 6 is a game I talked about when I talked about video games a few weeks ago. This is a game that introduced me to a particular IP. The game is called Bloodborne. Let me hit the banner here. Bloodborne. And so I knew nothing about the game other than I liked CMON. This was in the early days of Kickstarter. Earlier days of Kickstarter. And I just sort of went by the companies that I knew. And they said I would like this game. I know of Eric Lang, the designer. He's designed many other games I've liked, including Cthulhu Death May Die. But I kind of trusted him on this one. And I knew nothing about the video game it's based on. But on looking into the game, I got interested in the video game. Ooh, that's not the best view. Anyway, so what you're going to be doing is you're playing through a couple of stories. Basically, there's there's usually 3 acts you're going to try and play through. Technically, you're supposed to restart if you lose. Nobody will know, but what you're doing, though, is you're running through generally and you're fighting these monsters. And there's this really interesting deck building mechanism that you're using to kind of do your combat. It's very deterministic combat, but you're also, it's card based, and the enemies have just a few actions they can do, and you can kind of learn what the possibilities are and see as they dwindle down, so you can learn and get better at the game. When you die, you do some upgrading stuff. That's also good. It's really an interesting game. There's lots of big figures in it, but it nicely kind of depicts. Ooh, look at that! Yeah, it nicely depicts the stories and the experiences that are told in the video game. And every time I play the board game, it makes me want to pull the video game back out again. I think my only complaint is it doesn't go as far as Orphan of Kos, but hey, maybe there'll be an expansion someday. Just kidding, I'm sure there won't. But anyway, Bloodborne is a fantastic game based on a very interesting video game series, which is my number 1 video game of all time. And it's all based upon this board game. So clearly it evoked the theme for me. So that's my number 6, Bloodborne. Let's move on now to number 5. My number 5 is definitely an IP and definitely not a book, although I guess it's comic books. So this is a game based upon a system that I already liked, which was the Arkham Horror card game. The game is called Marvel Champions. Hold on, there we go. Marvel Champions. And in this game, you are going to be taking a hero or team of heroes up against a villain. It sort of tries to do this plug and play theme, sort of the same thing as Death May Die, but it's all very card based. So you're going to have a hero. These look like alternate art heroes. you're going to have a mess of cards, basically. You have a hero, and your hero has special actions, and you basically get to do actions as often as you really like. There's sort of a hero turn. You're going to use your deck. Your deck is going to be used as resources to pay for other cards. Those cards can then be activated to do various things, and your ultimate goal is going to be to beat down on some sort of a big bad. But the big bad will not just sit there and take it. He's scheming. He has certain scheme things, tasks, plots that he's going through, trying to reach some goal, and also, he can just kill you. That's another way for him to win. So you're playing through these stories. Now, I don't know that the theme is as strong, but sometimes it is, right? The way the characters interact, they all kind of feel a little bit different. The different villains are interesting. There's several now campaign-based ways to play it. The campaigns are lackluster, in my opinion, but they also do come with lots of new villains. My initial complaint about the game is that there were only, 3 villains that came in the core box, and it really needed a lot more. And unfortunately, just like Death May Die, it seems like what they think, the publishers think needed are more heroes. Well, no, each villain is a new sort of scenario you're going to be playing, and that's kind of where the game lives and dies. Now there's plenty of stuff, though, so that complaint has been resolved. Anyway, it lets you sort of have an experience with these various Marvel characters. You've got sort of your core team that you see in all the movies, but now there's a lot of other sort of lesser known or side characters, and I think that makes it really very interesting as well. So that's my number 5, Marvel Champions. My number 4 is coming up right after this. All right, my number 4 is a game I have talked about a lot lately. I talked about it last time. I talked about it a couple times before that. This game is I've said it's the game I wanted when I was a child. This is Masters of the Universe Clash for Eternia. I just don't know what else to say, right? This is a game about He-Man and all of his friends. It is a big sort of miniatures heavy game. Let's see, I can put it up here. Miniatures heavy game, but it's really just so simple and so fun. You can take any characters. It's this plug and play thing that Simon does very well. You've got all these characters you can use. They'll fight. They'll do some objective. You can make teams that cross kind of party lines, or you can stick with the sort of inherent teams. You've got all the characters that you're wanting to see. You've got, a very simple dice combat, great upgrades. There's this great upgrade system where the game is going to make you stronger. Just every couple of turns, something good's going to happen, and you're going to get better. The figures all look great. They will look amazing if they ever get painted. But the game itself is where it shines. It's just so fun, so fast, so engaging, and one of those games that just brings me joy. As I've said before, it's probably my favorite IP of all time. I love Masters of the Universe, and this game brings me everything I could possibly have wanted from that IP. So no need to say more about it. Just watch the last couple episodes of Wednesday Whimsy, and you'll hear plenty about Masters of the Universe Clash for Eternia. Let's move on to number 3. All right, so we're kind of stretching the IP definition again, but I don't think that I'm doing so unfairly. This is probably the oldest game on my list. It is long out of print. It's also an Eric Lang game. I think he just seems to do IPs well. He's your IP guy. This game is called Chaos in the Old World. So I don't know much about the sort of old non-40K Warhammer, or the 40K Warhammer for that matter. But this game, Chaos in the Old World, you're playing one of 4, or with the expansion, 5 kind of gods of this old place, and you are trying to compete for the souls of men. This is set in the Warhammer world. Everything's very violent and unpleasant. It's definitely not the kind of world that anybody would want to live in. There's all kinds of asymmetric powers. Each of the different gods is going to score differently. Everyone has 2 ways to win, although some are more likely for than others, depending on who you are. But it's just a great game with a great IP that I know little about, but would love to know more if it didn't require all kinds of painting and assembling of miniatures. Anyway, that's my number 3, Chaos in the Old World. Moving on now, very quickly, to my number 2. My number 2 IP game of all time. Oh my goodness. I am sorry. I am getting all kinds of stuff. My number 2 IP game is, let's find the banner here, is a game that really, would you excuse me? I wish there were a way to do this. Apologies, somebody's at the door. There we are. Sorry about that. Someone was trying to deliver something to my house, and I'm sorry. Jeez, people are very persistent. Great TV. I wish there were a way to edit that out. Um, let's go on to my number 2 is Unmatched. So Unmatched is a game where you are going to take literally anybody. Well, not literally anybody, but pretty much any any kind of character from lots of different IPs. You've got the core set, which I'm showing here. Hopefully I'm showing here. The core set is Alice in Wonderland, Medusa, Sinbad, and King Arthur, but there have been so many different sets that have been released since then. There are dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. There's characters from other mythology. There is, there's Achilles, there's Dracula, Sherlock Holmes. There are Marvel characters, some that you know and some that you don't. It's just really, it's kind of all IPs, and that's why it scores so highly. Also, it's just so much fun. This is a game I really love to play, and it's a game that I'm just never getting bored of. I like that more stuff keeps coming out. Initially, my concern was there wasn't enough. Now there's definitely plenty, and I'm looking for a way to store it. Um, but it's a game that I just really am always in the mood for. It's so fast, so easy, card-based combat with all the characters feeling sort of like their own characters. It's just really a fantastically fun game, and my number 2 IP of all time, or IP-based board game of all time. Let's go on now to my big final number 1. So when I thought about doing the list, I shouldn't have Unmatched up there anymore. Apparently, it's technical glitch the day. Um, my number 1 was the first game I thought of when I thought about doing this list. It is not an IP that I really love. In fact, I don't really love it at all. But the game is so good, and it does the IP for what it is. It does it proud. This game is Dune Imperium. So I find Dune to be one of those things that I would love to love. I've read the books a couple of times, well, at least the first 4, and I found them to be just a slog, just not really very enjoyable. I um, I I really don't like the books. I found the new movie to be sluggish and boring. Uh, Maybe part 2 will be better. But this game is so fun. This is a game that's just tight and tense all the way through. You're using cards, and there's sort of a deck building mechanism here where you're going to be adding cards to your deck and slowly going through them, but you're using your cards to place your workers on this map. You're trying to get involved in combats, but not every one, because sometimes the prizes are better for you than others. Ultimately, it's going to be a race to see who can get the most, 10 points and trigger the end of the game. But it's so tight and tense, especially at 3 players. The game can be played solo, and it's okay solo. The game can be played at 2, but it's like playing it solo just with another person. The game can be played at 4, but it's a little more chaotic. But at 3, this game just sings. Now, look, I like it at all player counts, but 3 is my preference. It's very tense all the way through. Can you get that last point? Is someone going to pass me on this track and take something from me? How am I going to use my cards, use my special abilities, and improve myself in a way that's going to bring me victory? There's also 2 great expansions. They're expansions that I almost always will play with, mostly because I don't want to go through the hassle of separating them out of the deck, which sounds like a nightmare. But they don't add a whole lot of rules, and they do sort of balance out a few areas of the game, making some things a little bit more interesting than others. But even without the expansions, I think the game is great. This is a fantastic way to experience Dune, even if you don't love Dune. So let the spice flow. Anyway, that's kind of it. That's all I've got for today. Apologize for some of those technical interruptions and somebody who kept ringing my doorbell. We'll end that here. I'll be back in another week with another topic. Not sure what it is yet, but I'm sure it will be something fun to discuss. And I will see you back. I'm going to wish you, until then, safe travels and courage when you need it. And I'll see you back next time on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.